Hi everyone, and welcome to AAT Level 4, Professional Diploma in Accounting, Synoptic Assessment. My name is Gareth Thomas and I'm the AAT Course Manager at LSBF, and I'm here today to try and help you get through your Synoptic Assessment and establish how a Synoptic Assessment has been put together. And what we're looking for and what you should be looking for as students to get you through Level 4 with a distinction and qualify as a fully qualified AAT accountant. So without talking out too much more in the introduction, I will go on to a few slides where I will be able to explain the background to a Synoptic Assessment and where you are expected to get by the end of your Level 4 AAT course. So, what we have in front of us is an introduction to the Synoptic Assessment at Level 4. And I'm going to speak to you about this for the next sort of 25 minutes and then by the end of that we will be ready to attack the AAT. So what have we got? Key features, AQ216. Well, when AQ216 was being established, even though it's been sort of running now for a couple of years, what the AAT did, they looked at the old syllabus and along with large companies within industry, they tried to establish a better qualification, if you like, more in tune with what industry were looking for. So there were various consulting papers that went out and what they came back with, and this is why we are here today, is they came out with the idea of producing a Synoptic Assessment. And this Synoptic Assessment is not just for Level 4 professional AAT students, it covers Level 3 and it covers Level 2. And those of you students that have progressed so far under AQ216 will be familiar with the structure of the Synoptic Assessment. And I'll talk to you of what units it covers at Level 4 and how it differs from the previous levels. Now, along with this, the AAT came up with grading, and again, it was as a result of talking to people within industry. And they've come up with a grading system, which I think you would probably be aware of at this level, of pass, merit, distinction. So it applies across all levels, and this will help you. The higher the grade, obviously, the better you feel, the more content you feel, and the better job prospects, I suppose. If that is the aim of it, then that's what you're looking to do. The AAT also helped sort of smarten up their website here. They put a lot more resources on the website for you, and you will have found out that there'll be sample assessments. There will be the green light area where you can go and practice sections that you're weak on. There will be an e-learning section, and they're all split under each unit that you're going to cover. So all that came together as background for the Synoptic Assessment at Levels 2, 3 and 4. Now, Level 4, there are 6 units to complete to be successful as a Level 4 AAT students. And for the first time, you will be faced with an option on a course of study within AAT. We have 4 mandatory units, and you have to cover the 4 mandatory units. However, you have to choose 2 options from a total of 5 that are currently available. You don't need to choose any more than 2. It's no good doing 3. You've passed the requirement. So that's what you are faced with for the first time. And you have to decide yourselves, or along with discussions within the workplace, or even what you intend to do within your career, on which options that you should take, because they very much play a part on what level of accountancy you'd like to go to and on which branch of accountancy that you would particularly like to go to. So that is something to consider as soon as you register for the AAT Level 4. However, the mandatory units have to be done regardless. And you have to set those 4 units whether you like it or not. So let's presume we like it and we're all ready to go. Now, what are the mandatory units? Now, this is in no particular order. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through the mandatory units first of all. We've got management, accounting and budgeting. Now, this is examined on an individual basis and as part of the Synoptic Assessment. And what this does, this unit builds on from what you've covered at Level 3. Right. So if you particularly enjoyed the costing section at level 3, then this may well be an option. Sorry, this is as well something that you'd like to continue at level 4 and specialise in, and will affect your options also. So that's all to do with master budgets and developing budgetary control and really getting involved in more depth on costing. We've also got management accounting, decision and control. So this unit again is costing linked. It's a mandatory unit, so it has to be done. And it extends from the management accounting budgeting. So you'll be covering things, decisions on make or buy and something that we call limiting factors. And all this is built on at level 4 and has to be covered. Now these units are examined on an individual basis, and they are also contained within the Synoptic assessment. So they're not examined fully twice, but they're on the syllabus twice, if you like. The other mandatory units that we've got financial statements of limited companies, and we've got accounting systems and control. So I'd like to talk firstly about financial statements of limited companies. This, yet again, is the kind of spine of AAT, really. It brings you from level 2, where you've got your 2 bookkeeping units, to level 3, where you've got 2 bookkeeping units, and then you progress to level 4, where we're now dealing with limited companies and information. So techniques are being developed here, and you'll be talking about consolidation, company accounts, statements of financial position, statements of comprehensive income, what we commonly term as ratio analysis, which you will cover here, and this will also possibly appear in your decision-making unit. And there's an element where they cross over at level 4, and as you progress in your career, more and more this does happen. So this is examined individually and is also on the Synoptic assessment. Now, that already must indicate to you that, wow, this Synoptic assessment contains a lot of information. You're right, it does. At level 4, you are going to qualify, so you're being tested to a very high level. Okay? So you will need to get those 3 units in the bag, if you like, before attempting your Synoptic assessment, because the various parts of it will reappear. Now, the accounting systems and control, hooray, does not have its own exam. It is only examined within the Synoptic assessment. There's no individual exam here. However, because it has to be examined, because it has a qualification specification, because it has learning outcomes and assessment criteria, there must be a fair amount of this within the Synoptic assessment. So you would expect to see this unit. And a second tip really is, don't assume that because it's non-examined you don't have to know much of it. You will have to know as much of it as the other units. You will have to address the information that you're using for this unit. You will have to practice it and refer to all your sources to bring together elements of this unit. And certainly when you practice the writing elements, which is probably the biggest reason for people not doing exceptionally well at any exam. Figures are great because we're accountants, but the writing elements would be producing reports, and you get skills and techniques study in this unit, and the AAT are fully aware of that, and you need to be aware of that as well. So those things are all part of the Synoptic assessment. Now the options, and in no particular order I will talk you through what options you have at level 4. And there are 2 from 5, and the 2 options I have in front of you here are cash and treasury management and credit management. Now there's no reason why I put those together, but often training providers will go down this route. They will take those 2 units, or they'll take the tax units, which I'll come to in a second. But so cash and treasury management or credit management, they are 2 of the options. You can match them in any order you choose. So depending on what you want and what your employer wants and what you think is best for you or what you excel at. And this is the beauty of level 4. If you're very good at something and it's on a particular syllabus, then there's every reason to concentrate on that, because logically you will get a good grade, and logically you get a good overall grade. So then it works out very well for you. So these are examined individually, and very good news come up yet again, and not within the synoptic. So none of the options are examined in the synoptic assessment. They're standalones. That's what we call them. So what are the other options? So let's take a look at the next slide and have a look at the other options. Well, we have two here. Again, no reason for grouping, but people tend to choose both, is business tax and personal tax. These are not part of the synoptic assessment. However, they will be examined individually. So you have a choice. Now you can choose business tax and credit management, or personal tax and cash and treasury management, or any combination within those units. It depends on you as students. And there's one more unit to talk about as an optional unit, which is the next one, and that is external auditing. So if you're planning to be an auditor in the future, and that is your chosen career, or that is the advice that you've got of people within the workplace, then that is an option that you have at level 4. And again, worth looking at this level is, if you intend to continue your studies after level 4, is to think, well, if I chose this unit, will it benefit me then? Or will I get an exemption from a different level that I'm aiming for? So you have to sit back and plan. Planning at level 4 is so essential. Really important that you decide. However, if you do want and need to change your idea, it's not the end of the world, but it's just nice to get it right at the start. And again, this is examined individually. So you can choose either of any of these units. And at level 4, now the order in which you study, it really does depend on yourselves. You could study the optional units and then go on to the core or the mandatory units and then do your synoptic assessment. You could do it that way, and there's nothing to stop you doing that, and you will probably find that some training providers have chosen this way. Or you can do your mandatory units, your synoptic assessment, bearing in mind you need the mandatory units knowledge to attempt the synoptic assessment, right? Then your optional units. So either do the options at the start or at the end. We really wouldn't advise you drop an option in when you're studying core for synoptics, because it's something else that comes in to study, and it might take you kind of off the ball of the synoptic assessment. So hopefully that's quite clear, my explanation there, at the start or at the end. Now, and just to add to that, while we're on that theme, is that with the business and personal tax, you get a window of opportunity of 1 year to set those assessments before the Chancellor's budget, which happens every year, and the Financial Services Act gets updated, and then the assessments at the AAT will get updated. So you generally have a window between January and December where you have one Financial Services Act that's been examined. And once that act is finished, okay, the syllabus kind of changes slightly, and then the new tax rates will come into play with the next Financial Services Act, which will be on the next year. So with level 4 and the 6 units, if you were going to take more than 1 year to study this, then you have to decide what knowledge that you're going to bring to the table on this. If you're working in tax at the moment, it might make sense to do the tax units first. If you're going to be working in tax, you think, within a year's time, then do the core units, do your synoptic, then do the tax units. Then you've got your work experience helping you, plus you've got the latest figures that are available to use as well. A lot of the content would be the same, but it depends. It'll be more up-to-date information and more recent information. So very, very important that your planning at level 4 is absolutely spot on. And again, I hope that's clear for everyone, and we can see exactly where we lead into on this. Contributions to the final grade. Important, okay, really important. So what have we got? Now, the mandatory units, they all contribute 15% of the overall grade. The optional units contain 10% of the overall grade. So with your 3 mandatories, you've got 45% of your overall grade is down to the mandatory units. So getting a good mark there is important. That's not to say that the 10% of the optional isn't important. Now, if you're looking at that and doing the mathematics very quickly in your heads, which I presume you will at this level, you're probably working out, well, hang on, the synoptic assessment, that's got quite a weighting attached this year. And you all know how the weightings work out. It's the weighting multiplied by the mark, which gives your overall percentage. So it's 15% times a mark of maybe 90. You can multiply that out. That'll give you a figure. And then you do that for the units as it's run through. And in the end, you get an average, which drops you into one of the bands. Right? So 15% for all the core, 10% for the options. So, kind of recapping a little bit here. Key features. The synoptic assessment. 35% of the overall grade is down to your synoptic assessment. Now that is very high. That's over a third in all terms of the unit is down to the synoptic assessment. And this is why I'm emphasizing the sort of accounting systems and control. You know, what you're doing maybe in the workplace. Make sure you get a good grade at that, because that's got a massive weighting, and you need to concentrate and not overlook that and just go back on the areas. We know it's going to test your understanding, but it's between the mandatory units. And it should be attempted on completion of the mandatory units. So whether you do your 2 units first or your 2 options at the end, you need to do it when you've done your mandatory units. Now, at level 4, again, it changes slightly, because you cannot sit a synoptic assessment on a weekly basis as at level 2. If you've done level 3, as we still call it, then you will know there are only certain windows of opportunity that you'll be able to use. It's only available at certain times of the year. So, I mean, there might be 5 or 6 attempts within an academic year. The timetable for this is issued by the AAT, and where to find the timetable, if you're not used to the website or you've sort of taken your eye off the ball on this, when you log in, go under training and assessment, go under study support, go under level 4, and then find out where all the information lies and where you've done all your practice, hopefully, and attempted these things. And then you can go and find when the timetable is to do your level 4 synoptic assessment. Okay, now it's so important that you plan this, right? Bearing in mind, everything at level 4 is human marked as well. Now that means the turnaround and your results are always slightly delayed. So you check the timetable on the AAT website. You get an overall completion. You get an overall grade on completion. I just want to go back to the timing and the marking of these units actually. Now, the marking at level 2 and 3, many of the things that you did were computer marked. And I want to recap on this. And what that means is that you get an instant result. So often you leave in the exam room and you know what you've got, apart from the synoptics. However, at level 4, that isn't the case. At level 4, everything's human marked. Because they're assessing a different skill, they're looking at sort of analysing at level 4. So it's not instruction where you have to do calculations and then off you go. You're actually going to interpret things and analyse and produce an answer. And whenever you produce a written answer, you know that it's quite difficult to do. And we're all accountants, we hate writing. We hate written answers, we hate thinking and constructing sentences. That's not what we want to do, but we have to do it. So because of that, then things are marked over a 6 weeks period. And that delays you getting your results, and it delays everything by 6 weeks. So it's just something to bear in mind. It's something additional to concentrate on. Do not stop after your exam if you think, oh, I haven't done very well. That's the wrong thing to do. You need to carry on and work through your next unit and wait, because anything that is written is subject to interpretation. And if you come out and start chatting with your colleagues or friends or people at work and say, well, I didn't write that, or I did, it doesn't matter, because it could mean the same thing, and it depends on your approach and what you've based your answers on. So another important tip there, okay? Carry on progressing. So what are the grades? Well, as in previous years, pass, merit, distinction. Okay? Pass 70 to 79, merit 80 to 89, and distinction 90 plus. At level 4, less students do get distinctions. Okay, it's a tougher thing that they're expecting you to do. However, that doesn't mean to say that well-prepared students don't get distinctions. It's all about the preparation you put in and getting ready for this. So let's have a look at the marking. As I said, all units will be marked within 6 weeks, right? And you know you'll get a result in 6 weeks' time. Feedback comes to you as students, so you'll know exactly where you are despite the delay. All units will take 2.5 hours to get tested. That is all the units that relate to the Synoptic assessment. Okay, because I think some of the options are at present 2 hours, though do check the AAT website. The Synoptic, 3 hours. So that is longer, but you'd expect that certainly at level 4. So the exams have gradually gone up as you progressed. And they can be studied in any order at this level, which again we've established. So your approach, what do you need to do? Okay, now really, really important is practice the synoptics from whatever workbook or study text or the AAT website. Look for guidance. There are sample assessments. There's plenty of work out there to practice. The difficult thing, I think, is practice under sort of time conditions here. Because it takes a long time, students tend to think, well, I'll do a little bit and come back to it. That's fine, as long as you don't look at the answers and say, write the answer to the question. And if there's a written part of the question, you must write that out. Okay, just go for everything, go for broke if you like, write it out, then look at the answer, then see where you've got to. But use your study material. Do these without looking. Okay, time and time again we say the same thing. And now another thing, concentrate on the weaker areas. If there's something that you don't like, there's a reason you don't like it, and inevitably things we don't like are things that we can, if you're honest with yourselves. If you did a SWOT analysis of yourself, you think, oh, I don't like that, well, I'm not very good at it. So that's what you must do. Go to that area and practice that area. Construct your sentences on that area. If it asks to define a problem, define it. Then it asks to explain the problem, then explain it. Write down what you've been asked to do and not what you want to do. Okay, and remember, that's what you must do. If it asks to come up with a reason, come up with a reason. If it says come up with a solution, come up with a solution, because marks will be given for those sections. So logically, that's the approach. Now, as well as this at level 4, and this is completely new, there's pre-release material. And if you practice this stuff already, you will be aware that there is information that is released prior to you sitting the synoptic assessment. And that information is available on the AAT website. You're allowed to read that information before going into the synoptic assessment. So I would advise you to look at that information, read it 3 or 4 times, make some notes on that, underline sections. It talks about the company, maybe the personnel within the company, okay, what the market is like. There may be some financial indicators on there. I don't know particularly, however, I would expect to see these things. And the live material is available for you to read before you go in. Now, when you're practicing the assessments, it'll be different material, obviously, because they won't be giving you answers to practice stuff that you're taking in. However, read that and practice it. And you, within the synoptic itself, you can refer to this. You can actually look at it because there are pop-ups available. And you will be able to click on a pop-up and refresh your memory. But the more you know before going in, the better for yourselves, because you'll be more at ease, you'll be calmer, you'll know what to expect. So practice and practice. Make sure you pass the other mandatory units, really, is our strong advice. I mean, if you had a bad day and dipped on one of them, that's not to stop you sitting the synoptic assessment. But, I mean, the AAT evidence is that people that have passed all the mandatory units pass the synoptic, and there's a big difference in those that do that. So make sure that you've got those under your belt, so to speak. Have a look at the areas you don't like. Practice all the available material. You know, it's important to do that. And lastly, but by no means sort of least on the advice here is read the examiner's comments in the report. That is available. And what the examiner does, they put together a report. It's a generic report. And what I mean by generic, it covers the whole area of synoptic. It's not for one particular synoptic or a practice one or the last one. It's an overall area. So there might be something within there that is stopping students from doing as well as they should be doing. Okay? So that's important. That could identify a weaker area. That will identify something for you to concentrate on. That might take you back to one of the core units. That's down to you to practice that and to get that together. And then to enjoy that. And before you know it, you'll be enjoying doing the synoptic assessments and looking forward to getting into that and completing your AAT studies. So hopefully everyone's quite happy. Now enjoy your studies, good luck, and then I will conclude. Thank you. Thank you everyone for watching AAT Level 4 Synoptic Assessment. I hope you've enjoyed yourselves and you've taken away a lot of information from this TV this afternoon. We'd like to thank you once again and hopefully join us next week, where what we'll be doing is really underlying questions on the synoptic assessment and the learning outcomes and criteria and trying to break things down a little further for you. But up until then, the overall approach that we're defining all the time is, plenty of practice, and practice does make perfect. So keep going, look at your weaker areas, go back to the areas within your core units that you're not quite sure about. It's fine, even if you've passed something, you may have forgotten it. That does happen to all of us. However, then you can recap it and go forward. So once again, thank you very much and see you next week.